and Lawrence 7 to the bus stop at about 8:40 a.m. It was the fourth day of a new school year, and you could still feel everyone's excitement. It was such a beautiful day that Sam and I literally skipped home, oblivious to what was happening in New York. At around 8:55, I was confirming playdate plans for Sam when a friend said, "I can't believe what I'm watching on TV. A plane has just hit the World Trade Center." For some reason, it didn't register with me. Until a few minutes later, I asked her calmly, "What building did you say?" "Oh, that's Alan's building. I have to call you back." There was no answer when I tried to reach him at the office. By now, my house started filling with people, his mother, my parents, our sisters and friends. The seriousness of the situation was beginning to register. We spent the rest of the day calling hospitals and the Red Cross and any place else we could think of to see if we could find him. I'll never forget thinking all day long, how am I going to tell Jacob and Lauren that their father was missing? They came home to a house filled with people, but no daddy. How were they going to be able to wait calmly for his return? What if he was really hurt? This was their hero, their king, their best friend, their father. The thoughts of that day replay over and over in our heads, always wishing for a different outcome. We are trying to learn to live with the pain. We will never forget where we were or how we felt on September 11th. But where was our government, its agencies and institutions prior to and on the morning of September 11th? The theory of luck. With regard to the 9/11 attacks, it has been said that the intelligence agencies have to be right 100% of the time, and the terrorists only have to get lucky once. This explanation for the devastating attacks of September 11th, simple on its face, is wrong in its value, because the 9/11 terrorists were not just lucky once. They were lucky over and over again. Allow me to illustrate. The SEC. The terrorist lucky streak began the week before September 11th with the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. The SEC, in concert with the United States intelligence agencies, has sophisticated software programs that are used in real time to watch both domestic and overseas markets to seek out trends that may indicate a present or future crime. In the week prior to September 11th, both the SEC and U.S. intelligence agencies ignored one major stock market indicator, one that could have yielded valuable information with regard to the September 11th attacks. On the Chicago Board Options Exchange during the week before September 11th, put options were purchased on American and United Airlines, the two airlines involved in the attacks. The investors who placed these orders were gambling that in the short term, the stock prices of both airlines would plummet. Never before on the Chicago Exchange were such large amounts of United and American airline options traded. These investors netted a profit of several $1 million after the September 11th attacks. Interestingly, the names of the investors remain undisclosed and the millions remain unclaimed in the Chicago Exchange account. Why were these aberrant trades not discovered prior to 9/11? Who were the individuals who placed these trades? Have they been investigated? Who was responsible for monitoring these activities? Have those individuals been held responsible for their inaction? The INS. Prior to 9/11, our United States intelligence agencies should have stopped the 19 terrorists from entering this country for intelligence reasons alone. However, their failure to do so in 19 instances does not negate the luck involved for the terrorists when it comes to their visa applications and our Immigration and Naturalization Service, or INS. With regard to the INS, the terrorists got lucky 15 individual times because 15 of the 19 hijackers' visas should have been unquestionably denied. Most of the 19 hijackers were young, unmarried, unemployed males. They were, in short, the classic overstay candidates. A seasoned former consular officer stated in National Review magazine, single, idle, young adults with no specific destination in the United States rarely get visas absent compelling circumstances. Yet, these 19 young, single, unemployed, classic overstay candidates still receive their visas. I am holding in the hand some of the applications of the terrorists who killed my husband. All of these forms are incomplete and incorrect. Some of the terrorists listed their means of support as simply student, failing to then list the name and address of any school or institution. Others, when asked about their means of support for their stay in the United States, wrote myself and provided no further documentation. Some of the terrorists listed their destination as simply hotel or California or New York. One even listed his destination as no. Had the INS or the State Department followed the law, at least 15 of the hijackers would have been denied visas and would not have been in the United States on September 11, 2001. Help us to understand how something as simple as reviewing forms for completeness could have been missed at least 15 times. How many more lucky terrorists gained unfettered access into this country? With no one being held accountable, how do we know that this still isn't happening? On the morning of September 11th, the terrorist luck commenced with airline and airport security. When the 19 hijackers went to purchase their tickets and to receive their boarding passes, 9 were singled out and questioned through a screening process. Luckily for those 9 terrorists, they passed the screening process and were allowed to continue on with their mission. But the terrorist luck did not end at the ticket counter. It accompanied them through airport security as well, because how else would the hijackers get specifically contraband items such as box cutters, pepper spray, or according to one FAA executive summary, a gun on those planes? Finally, sadly for us, years of GAO recommendations to secure cockpit doors were ignored, making it all too easy for the hijackers to gain access to the flight controls and carry out their suicide missions. The FAA and NORAD. Prior to 9/11, FAA and Department of Defense manuals gave clear, comprehensive instructions on how to handle everything from minor emergencies to full-blown hijackings. These protocols were in place and were practiced regularly for a good reason. With heavily trafficked airspace, airliners without radio and transponder contact are collisions waiting to happen. These protocols dictate that in the event of an emergency, the FAA is to notify NORAD. Once that notification takes place, it is then the responsibility of NORAD to scramble fighter jets to intercept the errant plane. It is a matter of routine procedure for fighter jets to intercept commercial airliners in order to regain contact with the pilot. In fact, between June 2000 and September 2001, fighter jets were scrambled 67 times. If that weren't enough protection, on September 11th, NEADS, or the Northeast Air Defense System of NORAD, was several days into a semi-annual exercise known as Vigilant Guardian. This meant that our Northeast Air Defense System was fully staffed. In short, key officers were manning the Operation Battle Center, fighter jets were cocked, loaded, and carrying extra gas on board. Lucky for the terrorists, none of that mattered on September 11th. Let me use Flight 11 as an example. American Airlines Flight 11 departed Boston Logan Airport at 7:45 a.m. The last routine communication between ground control and the plane occurred at 8:13 a.m. Between 8:13 and 8:20, Flight 11 became unresponsive to ground control. Additionally, radar indicated that the plane had deviated from its assigned path of flight. Soon thereafter, transponder contact was lost. 2 Flight 11 airline attendants had separately called American Airlines reporting a hijacking, the presence of weapons, and the inflictions of injuries on passengers and crew. At this point, it would seem abundantly clear that Flight 11 was an emergency. And yet, according to NORAD's official timeline, NORAD was not contacted until 20 minutes later at 8:40 a.m. Tragically, the fighter jets were not deployed until 8:52 a.m., a full 32 minutes after loss of contact with Flight 11. Why was there a delay in the FAA notifying NORAD? Why was there a delay in NORAD scrambling fighter jets? How is this possible when NEADS was fully staffed with planes at the ready, monitoring our airspace? Flight 175, 77, and 93 all had the same repeat pattern of delays in notification and delays in scrambling fighter jets. Delays that are unimaginable considering a plane had, by this time, already hit the World Trade Center. Even more baffling for us is the fact that fighter jets were not scrambled from the closest Air Force bases. For example, for the flight that hit the Pentagon, the jets were scrambled from Langley Air Force in Hampton, Virginia, rather than Andrews Air Force Base right outside D.C. As a result, Washington skies remain wholly unprotected on the morning of September 11th. At 9:41 a.m., 1 hour and 21 minutes after the first plane was hijacked confirmed by NORAD, Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. The fighter jets were still miles away. Why? So the hijackers' luck had continued. On September 11th, both the FAA and NORAD deviated from standard emergency operating procedures. Who were the people that delayed the notification? Have they been questioned? In addition, the interceptor planes or fighter jets did not fly at their maximum speed. Had the belatedly scrambled fighter jets flown at their maximum speed of engagement, they would have reached New York City and the Pentagon within moments of their deployment, intercept the hijacked airliners before they could have hit their targets, and undoubtedly saved lives. The leadership. The acting Joint Chief of Staff on September 11th was General Richard B. Myers. On the morning of September 11th, he was having a routine meeting. The acting Joint Chief of Staff stated that he saw a TV report about a plane hitting the World Trade Center, but thought it was a small plane or something like that. So he went ahead with his meeting. Meanwhile, the second World Trade Center was hit by another jet. Nobody informed us of that, Myers said. By the time he came out of his meeting, the Pentagon had been hit. Whose responsibility was it to relay this emergency to the Joint Chief of Staff? Have they been held accountable for this error? Surely this represents a breakdown in protocol. The Secretary of Defense was at his desk doing paperwork when Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. As reported, Secretary Rumsfeld felt the building shake, went outside, saw the damage, and started helping the injured onto stretchers. After aiding the victims, the Secretary then went to the war room. How is it possible that the National Military Command Center, located in the Pentagon and in contact with law enforcement and air traffic controllers from 8:46 a.m., did not communicate to the Secretary of Defense, also at the Pentagon, about the other hijacked planes, especially the one headed to Washington? How is it that the Secretary of Defense could have remained at his desk until the crash? Whose responsibility is it to relay emergency situations to it? At 6:15 a.m. on the morning of September 11th, my husband, Alan, left for work. He drove into New York City and was at his desk, working at his NASDAQ security trading position with Cantor Fitzgerald in Tower 1 of the World Trade Center by 7:30 a.m. In contrast, on that morning, President Bush was scheduled to read to elementary school children. Before the president walked into the classroom, NORAD had sufficient information that the plane that hit the World Trade Center was hijacked. At that time, they also had knowledge that 2 other commercial airliners in the air were also hijacked. It would seem that a national emergency was in progress. Yet the president was allowed to enter a classroom full of young children and listen to students read. Why didn't the Secret Service inform him of this national emergency? When is the president supposed to be notified of everything the agencies know? Why was the president permitted by the Secret Service to remain in the Sarasota Elementary School? Was this Secret Service protocol? In the case of a national emergency, seconds of indecision could cost thousands of lives. And it is precisely for that reason that our government has a whole network of adjuncts and advisors to ensure that these top officials are among the first to be informed and not the last. Where were these individuals who did not properly inform these top officials? Where was the breakdown in communication? Was it luck? Is it luck that aberrant stock trades were not monitored? Is it luck when 15 of visas are awarded based on incomplete forms? Is it luck when airline security screeners allow hijackers to board planes with box cutters and pepper spray? Is it luck when emergency FAA and NORAD protocols are not followed? Is it luck when a national emergency is not reported to top government officials on a timely basis? To me, luck is something that happens once. When you have this repeated pattern of broken protocols, broken laws, broken communication, one cannot still call it luck. If at some point we don't look to hold the individuals accountable for not doing their jobs properly, then how can we ever expect for terrorists to not get lucky again? And
12/18 on February the 26th, 1993, a bomb exploded in the World Trade Center, killing 6 people, injuring 1,000 people, and causing $510 million in damage. On June 24th, 1993, the FBI arrested 8 individuals for plotting to bomb a number of New York City landmarks. Why did it take our bureaucracies and our intelligence community and our politicians so long to react to targets and clues and evidence that had been building and building and building over time?
I'm Frank Craven, and I want to ask you a question. Do we want foreign soldiers patrolling our land who don't speak English? How do you think the Iraqis feel after 12 years of sanctions and bombings in their land? They have these trigger-happy, paranoid troops who don't speak Iraqi patrolling their lands. They're not welcome. We're not welcome there.
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Bring the boys home alive. We're not welcome in Iraq. They don't see us as liberators. They see us as occupiers. After 12 years of bombings and sanctions and constant, raid, and then we have these paranoid, trigger-happy troops patrolling around. They don't speak Iraqi. They don't understand the culture. They're like foreigners with these stormtrooper Nazi-style helmets. Forget about it. Every day, one of our boys dies. We need to bring them home. We need to bring the boys home alive and be done with it. Saddam's out of power. Ha! Saddam was always on the phone with Bush Sr., that whole orchestrated ruse. He was put in power by the CIA. He's the perfect ruse and foil for our government to have a military excursion, a war. They need a war. They have to justify their budget. We didn't get Osama bin Laden, who was Tim Osman, a CIA attaché. We didn't get Saddam Hussein, who's always cut deals with Uncle Sam's war machine and played right into the war, the big antithesis, the boogeyman. And now, where is he? Hello? We have the most modern technology and the most sophisticated and richest resources. We could have gotten Saddam Hussein like that if we wanted to, but we don't want to get him. He has to be the mysterious boogeyman to justify war and military occupation. It's a ruse. This is a joke. This is a joke played on us, where our taxes are funding a war machine, $400 billion a year, tax-free, to the Pentagon. What does that get us? We need to justify our budget and create a war and blow off our bombs that have an expiration date. Please, bring the boys home alive now. And bless the Iraqis. Alhamdulillah, tansaha walafia, wibaranina. Only soldiers that speak Iraqi should stay there and help them out of uniform as a Red Cross assistant to help their infrastructure for their plumbing, their life, and help get Iraq back on track the way it wants to be, the way it deserves to be. It's the oldest civilization on earth, for God's sakes. They can take care of themselves. They don't need us. We went in there and all we did was protect the oil wells. It was absurd. It's like carte blanche military mafia for Carlyle Group and Halliburton. General Smedley Butler said it in his book, The War is a Racket. He could teach the mafia. This is a military mafia. New World Order is global economic control. It's not about freedom. Freedom is the freedom to allow yourself to express yourself and be free. So let these people be free. Get out of Iraq. Soldiers don't belong there. Every day one of our boys dies, comes home in a box, in a coffin. What is that? Is that a welcome mat? No. And this Saddam Hussein business is just a boogeyman that they have in power. They probably haven't protected. Like Osama bin Laden, they know how to get him. They could have got him from the get-go. Most popular guy in Afghanistan, most popular guy in Saddam in Iraq. They could have got him. They can read our license plate. They know the color of our pee-pee from these technology satellite tracking systems they have. But what do? They ignore reality and just create this whole war machine. Bombs have an expiration date, the backlog of orders for helicopters and military equipment. It's all a big business. War is a business, and it's not a good one. They talk about hawk or dove, it's about a vulture feeding off corpses. War is evil. That's what's evil. Selfishness is evil. That's what's evil. People aren't evil. People are inherently good. God is, and God's grace is inside all of us. But we have this inherent, nasty, negative killing machine that has gone crazy. And the Bush administration stole democracy in this country and is ruining the morale of the Arabic world and the whole world. We don't even need oil, really. We can work without oil and reconfigure our carburetors. We got to find a new energy solution for the future. May God bless America, please. Not God bless them. Don't be arrogant. May we please have blessings upon the whole world. We must bless Iraqis. We must bless Afghans. We must bless. God sees all of us equally. But we as individuals must come together through technology, through communication, through television, have real reporters reporting what's going on in Iraq and how many casualties there. It's our responsibility. Same with the Palestinians. Those people are being bulldozed by our bulldozers, our bombs, our nonsense. We have a terrible karma in this country. Our America, our country is great, but we have a tremendous guilt for the dictatorships we've implanted in Latin America, the torture we've imported, like Kissinger. He was in charge of 9/11, supposedly, according to Bush. He killed Salvador Allende on September 11th of 1973. And this whole 9/11 thing was an orchestrated ruse. They knew what was going on. They could have stopped it. But no, like the Pentagon, shot itself in the foot and got its sympathy and its budget and created its war. This is their business. And all this disinformation, where's Saddam Hussein, he's out to get us, all this, Osama bin Laden. These were military CIA attaches. These guys have been working from the inside, from the get-go, and they're the foil we need to justify this budget. So communism failed. 40 years ago, Kennedy was shot, and Gerald Ford was on the Warren Commission. Dick Cheney was Gerald Ford's chief of staff. That whitewashed all the truth. Ford, the only unelected president, pardoned Nixon immediately, and it was the stooge that was part of the Warren Commission, which Allen Dulles was on. Kennedy fired Allen Dulles, head of the CIA, another neo-Nazi, buddy of Prescott Bush and all those lawyers that brokered deals with the Nazis. Now they're these are the stooges that are running the truth and investigation into the crime of the century. There was a coup d'etat 40 years ago, and it continues to this day with this military agenda. Only Carter got in and was able to, as a true military commander of a nuclear submarine in World War II, knew the horrors of war, knew how to stop war and say no. It didn't go into Afghanistan and invade, and boycotted the Olympics and had human rights. No foreign soldier died under his command.
And I am very proud of this team.
They stopped the oil from flowing, and they crashed his economy and made him look like a bad president. Same oil is out there as always, but the oil Texas barons that are running this nonsense are like, you know, we're pissed at Carter for not going into the war game. And so they say, oh, there's an oil shortage. It's these Texas oil baron mafiosis that have hijacked our country and our freedom and Bill of Rights. And then to this day, and Clinton played right into him. As soon as he got in power, he bombed Baghdad and kept the no-fly zones going, and NAFTA and GATT and Janet Reno, and shredding our Bill of Rights for the New World Order of global economic control. That's what it's about. It's a plan hatched by Hitler, executed by Bush, and maintained by Clinton. Now Bush Jr. is keeping up the good work. Little Bushy Jr., Dumya Jr., you know, with his daddy's old friends in power, Secretary of State, now we used to be Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff, Colin Powell. He was a military man. And you know, that's supposed to be a top diplomat to negotiate. No, with force, that's a farce. And the Secretary of Defense, Cheney, in the Persian Gulf War, a holiday fiasco, is now VP. And he's the policy wonk behind all this. Buddies with Enron and everything that created the blackouts in California and stuff. Is Kenneth Lay in jail? No. These awful men, these criminals, you know, if you steal one purse, you go to jail for years. Steal 1 million purses, you go golfing. There's this greed out of control, this nasty, voracious appetite of power that has hijacked our country. And we need to stand up and communicate and change this government through the revolutionary ideals that was founded upon and our founding fathers. We must diversify power and have a participatory democracy, not a representative one, a pseudo-democracy. There's a participatory, authentic democracy in Libya. Muammar Gaddafi walks around like the big brother, and all they have town hall meetings and community consensus for the concerns of every community. And that's what we should have, open dialogue, communication through our internet and our telecommunications and our ability to communicate, to have freedom and justice for all. What we have is a disguised dictatorship, media blackout, manipulation. That's why I'm on public access TV. Thanks for tuning in. You're one of the few people that are brave and conscientious enough to look at alternative programming and think about what's healing our country. This is a question every patriot, every person concerned with democracy and freedom must think about and must answer. It's up to us to be vigilant and try to exercise our rights to communicate and effect change. Through prayer, God exists, Spirit exists, through writing, through voting, and through looking into the real agenda, what's really going on. 9/11 tragedy didn't have to happen to us, but it did because these people are monsters. The Waco destruction of innocent kids didn't have to happen, but they let the compound burn down. And Oklahoma City was also an inside job. The surveillance tapes are under seal. Tim McVeigh's trial was postponed 3 months for an FBI, 3,000-page FBI memo called OK Bomb. And it was, you know, they destroyed all the Dene records with the Indian nations and also the Gulf War syndrome and all the real dirty germ warfare records that they do. They experiment on our troops and on us, us unsuspecting public. Read Leonard A. Cole's book, Clouds of Secrecy. It talks about a 40-year study from Fort Detrick, a whistleblower. General Smedley Butler wrote a book called War's a Racket. Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips wrote a book called Transformation in America. It talks about that Dick Cheney is brutalizing her, and she was a drug courier, sex slave, mind control who escaped. Transformation in America, very powerful book. There's a lot of books. The Behold the Pale Horse by Bill Cooper. They got him. He died, unfortunately, but he